Following poor early voting turnout, election officials hope for a strong showing today as thousands of Bexar County voters decide congressional, state, and county races on both sides of the aisle.
11 runoffs will be decided around Bexar County today.
San Antonio activates Stage 1 watering restrictions. And Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick blames anything but guns for America's endless cycle of school shootings.
Whether it's through abortion, whether it's the breakup of families, through violent movies.
I'm Chance Dorland with your Express Briefing for Tuesday, May 22nd. Subscribe to this and other free content at expressnews.com/podcasts. And get each day's top news and sports headlines delivered to your inbox at expressnews.com/newsletters. 2 days after a teenage gunman claimed the lives of 8 students and 2 teachers at a Texas high school, Sunday, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick appeared on ABC to blame anything but guns, including abortion, divorce, and violent video games, as reasons the U.S. seems locked in an endless cycle of school shootings. The AP's Ben Thomas has more.
Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick says the real problem is the devaluing of life in America.
Particularly violent video games, which now outsell movies and music. Psychologists and psychiatrists will tell you that students are desensitized to violence.
He spoke on ABC's This Week, as did Nicole Hockley, whose son was killed in the mass shooting at Sandy Hook Elementary School in Connecticut. She argues that the lack of action on guns is actually what devalues life.
There are 10 people who are dead, who are not going back to their families. That's what we need to be focusing on.
San Antonio Express News Metro columnist Brian Chasnoff says if Patrick actually were to commit some introspection, he might see a culture of violence reflected in his own core supporter of hardline conservatives, who often wrap their political views in violent imagery, noting that before the lieutenant governor starts turning over rocks in liberal corners of America in search of a culture of violence to explain the nation's latest mass shooting, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick should look under his own rotunda. Find more of Metro columnist Brian Chasnoff's thoughts on the issue in today's print version of the San Antonio Express News and online at expressnews.com. While Sunday's storms helped replenish the Edwards Aquifer, the rainfall wasn't enough to stave off landscape watering restrictions that are now in effect. Monday, San Antonio and several other cities told their water customers to limit outdoor watering with irrigation systems and sprinklers to once a week, according to a schedule based on the last number of a building's address. Sprinkler watering in San Antonio is now only allowed before 11 a.m. or after 7 p.m. and is banned overnight and on weekends. Under Stage 1 restrictions of the San Antonio water system, off-duty police will give warnings and may issue tickets to people who repeatedly ignore the rules regarding sprinkler watering, with fines at $250 in municipal court. And after poor early voting turnout, election officials are hoping for a strong showing today as thousands of Bexar County voters will decide congressional, state, and county races on both sides of the aisle. Polls will be open today for 12 hours between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. A complete listing of polling locations and other information is available at the Bexar County Election Department's website. Here's San Antonio Express News County Government reporter Jasper Scherer with a breakdown of today's primary runoff elections.
11 runoffs will be decided around Bexar County today, and I'm just going to dive right in and give a brief rundown of some of the bigger ones, starting with the 21st Congressional District actually has a pair of runoffs between Matt McCall and Chip Roy on the Republican side and Joseph Kopser and Mary Wilson on the Democratic side. So the district covers parts of Bexar and Travis counties and partially or entirely covers 8 others in the Hill Country. So starting with the Republican side, Roy finished with 27% in the first round to McCall's 17%, but that really goes out the window here because that round included 18 Republicans, making it really all but impossible to predict where those voters might go in round 2. So you could argue here that Roy is coming in as the slight favorite because he's raised more money, drawn more help from outside groups, including more than $500,000 in ad support since March from the Club for Growth. And he's also gotten the benefit of Ted Cruz and Lamar Smith, the incumbent, campaigning for him in the district. But McCall comes in with some name ID from previous runs. And I don't think anyone's calling this for Chip Roy just yet. So we'll keep an eye on that one. On the other side, Mary Wilson is a pastor and a former math professor who finished above Joseph Kopser, an Army veteran and entrepreneur in the first round. And Kopser has run on his primarily on his crossover appeal during this runoff, whereas Wilson has focused more on kind of drumming up support among progressive voters. So that will be a really interesting sort of look at where the Democratic Party might be headed, kind of an early preview of the direction of the party. So switching over to Congressional District 23, that district goes all the way actually to the El Paso kind of outskirts, runs along the border, and hits the west side of Bexar County and also wraps around the north and south sides. So that Democratic runoff between Gina Ortiz-Jones and Rick Trevino will decide who faces Will Hurd, the Republican incumbent congressman, in November. And Jones, for now, I think also has to be seen as the favorite after winning 41% of the vote compared to Trevino's 17% in March. She's also outraised him quite a bit during this runoff. But Trevino, in the first round, for his part, he beat a candidate who raised about $600,000, Jay Hewlings, who was backed by the Castro brothers. So we'll see what happens there. I think, again, Jones coming in as sort of viewed as the expected winner, but you can never really write these things off. Looking at the governor's race, the Democratic primary runoff for governor is on the ballot as well, between Lupe Valdez, the former Dallas County sheriff, and Houston businessman Andrew White, who's the son of former Governor Mark White. And Valdez, again, I think seen as the slightly expected favorite because of her strong finish in the first round. She got 43% among a 9-candidate field. But, White has received several newspaper endorsements, and he's kind of generally had a stronger grasp on policy matters, I think, than Valdez. That's kind of been the consensus as we've seen this runoff unfold. So, and that's the only statewide office on the ballot. So we've kind of seen a bit of a drop-off in turnout because of that, at least during early voting. So we'll see if what Election Day brings and see if there's a bit of a rebound in turnout. But moving on to the county level, another interesting Democratic race is the one for the Precinct 2 seat on Commissioner's Court between the incumbent Paul Elizondo and the county Veterans Service Officer Keta Rodriguez. And Elizondo has held this seat continuously since 1986. He was first elected actually in 1982, but he's rarely faced serious competition before this, and he's kind of had to re-up his rather vast kind of grassroots campaign network. He's which for Rodriguez's part, she also has really kind of mobilized, I think, a pretty strong grassroots push here. So this one, Elizondo, I think you have to say he's probably coming in with a slight edge heading into Election Day because we saw he had the campaign funding to go on TV with an ad, which is, a pretty serious deal in a race with such low turnout. And he also has some pretty seriously embedded name recognition, name ID. But Rodriguez has been coming pretty hard after Elizondo on kind of the pervasiveness of the generational poverty in the precinct, and as well as Elizondo's sort of conception of how the county spends its money. So we'll be watching this one closely. She's really been hammering him on some of those issues over the last couple of months. Moving further down the ballot, getting to the end here, the new Bexar County Republican Party chair will also be decided today, and the former chair, Robert Stovall, vacated the seat to run for Congress in District 21 last year, and the interim chair, Mark DeRazio, is not seeking re-election. So that leaves the race now down to Cynthia Brem and Joanne Ponce Gonzalez. They're in the runoff for that seat. Brem won 45% in the first round. She's mounted a couple municipal campaigns unsuccessfully in the past. She's a socially conservative Republican running in kind of a Tea Party mold. So this this race is going to have some pretty major implications for the direction that the county party takes going forward, and especially as we approach the state GOP convention here in San Antonio next month. Moving on to House District 121, that's the race to succeed Speaker Joe Straus, and that one's down now to Steve Allison and Matt Beebe. Beebe being a two-time opponent of Straus in previous election cycles, and Straus and Lamar Smith as well, the CD21 incumbent, have both endorsed Allison in this race, but it's worth noting that Beebe finished first in the March 6th primary, and he's been really trying to make a dent in that kind of collection of, Terrell Hills, Olmos Park, Alamo Heights areas where Allison and Straus as well, when he was running, sort of received his strongest support. So I think what will be really decisive in this race is how effectively Beebe was able to campaign in those areas. And, especially because Beebe is clearly the more conservative candidate here, but he's been reaching out to those Straus Republicans to kind of try to find a path to victory. So the last race I would just note is there are a few other GOP runoffs for the 187th and 226th state district courts, as well as the county probate court that's being vacated by the incumbent Republican Tom Rickoff, who is running against Nelson Wolf for county judge. So anyway, polls are open today from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., and you can find your polling site on the Bexar County Elections Department website.
And that's your daily San Antonio Express News briefing for Tuesday, May 22nd. Subscribe to this and other free content at expressnews.com/podcasts. I'm Chance Dorland.